Time now for In Retrospect, brought to you by your Tri-State Cadillac dealers. But instead of what we usually do in this segment, which is revisiting moments, we're revisiting players, specifically teammates of Todd Zeile. We're going to talk about Robin Ventura. Before we do that, quickly, just want to get in some breaking news. According to Mark Feinsand, Danny Espinosa, minor league deal with the Yankees. They've had a lot of openings in that infield. They wanted to bring in veteran guys. It drives Sal crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a good move.
When Yankees fans always say, yeah, it's a nice little move.
He'll go there, hit 25 homers, right? Hit 260.
All right, so let's talk about Robin Ventura. Todd, what was he like as a teamate for you?
Oh, well, the Twitter universe ought to get to the fact that he played with a couple different teams, too. He must be a bad guy.
Truly bad guy. That's the only possible conclusion.
No, Robin was an amazing teammate and a great guy, still a good friend. But I think what people saw of him sort of in the public was a low-key guy, goes out and does his job every day, not too emotional. What you knew of him as a teammate was he has an amazing sense of humor. He's really, really funny and does a lot of things to help loosen up the club. We saw the tarp slide. That's been shown many, many times. But Robin had some other fun little attributes. This is the tarp slide in Yankee Stadium. He goes in. He and I were talking about running and doing the tarp. Next thing I know, he comes out dressed like Piazza. And I think there's a lot of people on that 2000 team that still feel like this was a turning point because Robin was really good about impersonating Mike, and this was just one of those moments that I think just galvanized the team. You see that other guy in that picture, Bobby V. I got a great story about Robin and Bobby V that I was going to get into if we have the time here. But we're playing in St. Louis, and I always felt like whenever we went into St. Louis, it wasn't the Mets against the Cardinals. It was Bobby V and the Mets against Tony La Russa and the Cardinals. It was like this chess match. And we get to the seventh inning. We're down by, I think, 4 runs or so. And Robin makes the last out of the inning. And Bobby V double switches for him in a spot that was really unusual. Robin was our cleanup hitter that day. I was hitting behind him. So comes, Robin was a little bit, confused by it. Sure. He goes in. This is a typical Robin move. Strips down, comes back out in like just his pants, no shoes, and a hat and a T-shirt with a Solo cup full of beer, and he's having a couple back on the dugout bench. You didn't hear this from me.
And off the record, this is completely off the record, everybody.
But what happened that was amazing is that Robin was just chirping at Bobby the whole time, like, you're such a great manager. This is an amazing move you made. And then, as it turns out, his spot comes up with I think the bases loaded to 2 men on in the 9th with a chance to be, he was going to be the tying run in the game. And so Bobby had to scramble and send up, I think, a pitcher to hit for in Robin's spot, a better hitting pitcher, maybe Mike Hampton, who walked. I come up, and miraculously, I hit a grand slam home run, and we end up winning the game. But the best part about it is Robin's like, Bobby's a genius. He's the manager of the year. And he's chirping right in his ear as he's drinking a beer. And in the dugout, it was the amazing celebration.
That's fantastic.
There's my story about Robin.
What a way to handle a situation that most guys would just get mad about.
No, he was.
To take it with a humor.
He was so funny. And Bobby V couldn't live it down. There was nothing he could say. He just, tipped his hat to Robin at the end of it.
I'm just picturing, like, the first question you'd ask Bobby V after that game. I'm picturing, like, a press conference and being like, what was taking out Ventura, your cleanup hitter, in a double switch?
Yeah, it worked out for me. It kind of worked out, huh?
I mean, Sal, when you think about Robin Ventura as a Met, and obviously as Todd's teammate, he was actually Todd's teammate with the Mets and the Yankees.
Right.
But what do you think of when you think about that guy?
Well, 2 things with Ventura. Obviously, the Grand Slam single, which was the year before you were there, but I'm sure you heard a lot about that. Sure. The other thing that ties in was his ability to hit with the bases loaded. I mean, all the guy did was hit Grand Slams. I remember a doubleheader against the Brewers. He hit, if I'm not mistaken, a Grand Slam in Game 1 and Game 2. You ever talk to him about, this is it? I was at, I think, maybe half of Game 1 and the rest.
Yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, there I am. I'm wearing the John Olerud jersey. No, but he was great with hitting with bases loaded. Yeah. You ever talk to him about that?
Yeah, you know what? I had fortunately had quite a bit of success with bases loaded, and we did talk about it. But I think the mindset, I think Robin might have had 16 Grand Slams in his career, which until A-Rod maybe was like behind Lou Gehrig or something. I think he was an amazing bases-loaded hitter. But I think one of the key things about hitting with the bases loaded, which he and I were both able to do at some level, was relax. The pressure's on the guy out there, not on you. A lot of guys get anxious when they come up with the bases loaded and want to go and do damage right away. All of a sudden, Robin kind of goes, like he's going to fall asleep up there.
Yeah.
And then, he knows he's going to get something to hit, and he took advantage of it. He was great with that.
That Grand Slam single was one of the best moments, even as not someone who grew up a Mets fan, one of the best moments of baseball in my teenage to college years. And I actually went, remember Ken Kaiser, the umpire?
Sure.
He had this dinner in Rochester, New York, where I grew up. And Robin, I was like 10 years old, so Robin must have been a pretty young player. He was still with the White Sox and going to the show, getting all our autographs signed. And I still remember that Robin Ventura was one of the nicer guys to me. This little kid running around looking for autographs at that stage, and he was nice. He gave me a minute. He talked to me, and when you have that kind of memory in your mind of a guy, how he treats a kid, Mattingly was the same way that day. That's a solid individual, and that's the memory I always had of him.
Quickly before we go to break, you think he wants to manage? Is that something he wants to do moving forward?
I think he wants to do it again, but I think he wants to go where he knows he's got a chance to win, and he didn't want to stay an extra couple of years with the White Sox and while they're rebuilding and have to suffer through that. So I think he's happy fishing and hanging out with his family right now.
Very cool.
Good for him.